Hey, welcome back. We are going to give you a week 6 update on our Toro Zoysia plugs. It has been quite dry, extremely hot. We are consistently in the mid to upper 90s for our highs, and we have not had rain now in almost 2 weeks. It's been 12 days or so, I think, since we've had rain. As a matter of fact, the last rain event that came through brought a EF3 tornado about 3 miles from here. So that was a close call. It really did some destruction. So we were quite fortunate on not having any damage. It was very strong winds and rain for about 30 minutes and then it was gone. But anyway, we're gonna go talk about this yard and see how it looks so you'll know what to expect when you plug. Okay, before we get started, I want to talk about the importance of moisture in your soil. I just watered this spot here behind me. That's why it's a little bit dark. However, way over there in the corner, it stays a little bit more moist than this large bare area behind me. Therefore, you will see more stolons and runner activity in that area versus this area. Not to mention, you can see how more densely plugged this area over here is versus this area. So I guess when we were plugging, they just decided that they were going to start spacing these out further and further. You know, as you get tired, you get a little more lazy with things, which is okay. It's still going to grow in. So let's go take a close-up look on some of these and talk about what's going on. Okay, right out of the gate, let's direct our attention to shade. So anytime you plant in shade, you're going to get slower growth and slower spreading versus a full sun area. However, these plugs are doing just fine. Same for our really shady spot over here. But one of the major issues that we have with shade typically comes with a tree. Anytime you have a tree, especially a large tree with shallow roots, like an oak tree, it's going to steal all of your moisture and a lot of your nutrients from the soil. So you can see our plugs are doing just fine. However, they're not really spreading yet. So these plugs are going to take some time. You know, we do have some spreading here. These plugs are looking pretty good, especially for the dense shade area that we're in. Now this particular spot here has always been one of my major dry spots in the yard. But you can take a look and see our little 2-inch plug that was here is basically quadrupled in size, and we see that amongst almost every one of these plugs. As we move out of our dry zone, we get into some major spreading. So we take a look at this guy here. Let me back it up. This is about 2 inches, so our plug was about this big. And you can see how much it's going. The same for all of these. So we're getting some major spreading in all of our lawn that is full sun. So we're just going to take a quick walk in here. Notice the Bermuda grass. Look at the stolons going crazy. So our plugs are starting to grow together. This here looks really, really good. And this is why I didn't mind the 18-inch spacing. So here's an example of something I want to show you. You can see the carcass here of dead Bermuda, both of which I sprayed with Roundup. However, I killed the Zoysia plug, or really set it back. That's why they look the way they do. I should add new plugs to it. I may do that, I probably won't. So we're seeing some major growth here. I mean, just look at all these stolons. Now that these stolons are tacked down, what we're going to see is more branching. So we can take a look here. This was one stolon that came out. It tacked down its roots here, here, and here at each of the internodes. Once it starts tacking down, for example, this guy here, let me see if I can get out of this shadow. We can look here where it rooted down. Now you're starting to see leaf blades come off of it. So you have a branch and a branch. Now each one of these branches is going to be a new stolon. Let me find you an example. Right here is a perfect example. So you have, the node has tacked its roots down into the soil, so it's not going anywhere. But now it's branched off here and branched off here. The same with this one. Oh, I broke that off. But the same here. That's what all of them are going to do. So as they're growing in, it's really going to take off even faster. It's going to cover more area more quickly. One thing that you'll see if you were to power rake your yard is washing. This is an area that the grass clippings or debris washed and settled in, and it created a dam. No big deal. That's really no elevation change there. And let's go take a look at more Bermuda. This is the area that I showed you in our previous videos. It's really coming in well. This is another chronic dry spot sometimes, especially this corner. This corner tends to stay a little more dry. So when you look at dry spots in the yard, one of your factors is going to be impervious surfaces that hold heat, such as asphalt or cement. They're really going to hold heat and radiate heat, drying out the surrounding soil quicker. And the really tough spot that we're going to have today is, now this is what I'm going to consider to be a really tough spot to grow in. It's on a ditch bank. You can see how dry this is. Now keep in mind, when they build a driveway or a culvert, they place rock around the culvert and around the driveway. So there's not much soil there to hold in moisture. This particular spot in the yard is clay. As you know, red clay gets extremely hard when it's dry. It's exposed to the sun. And when it dries, you can think of it like a clay pot. It gets really hard. It doesn't allow moisture to soak in. So it's kind of imperative to give places like this more water than normal. We're looking pretty good. We got some good looking plugs here. This was an area that was not power raked, but I sprayed some Roundup in it. And these plugs are doing good. Let's take a look from the road. This is the look as if you were driving up on my property. So you can see it looks much more dense than if it were, the camera were right on top of the plugs. So we're looking really, really good. So there's one thing that I left out earlier that I wanted to mention, and that was the compaction of the soil. So we want to make it easier for these plugs to spread. And one way to do that is to loosen the soil, adding air to the root zone and allowing better moisture to access the root zone. So what we can do is, I'm probably going to pull out my aerator today and go over this. And if it's pulling decent plugs, I'll continue on. If the ground is too hard, I'll just need to wait for rain. So we're going to do that, and then the plugs it pulls up, we can move around to fill in low spots, or just let it settle by itself into low spots. That's also going to help these plugs spread and get them moving a little quicker than they would if you did not do it. So I'm going to try it. If it works, we'll do it. I'll update you in the next video. I had to come back to the shade. So we're gonna kind of wrap this up. But number one, you're not gonna find a zoysia grass that's gonna spread as quickly as this. So if you're thinking about plugging, El Toro Zoysia is probably your number one choice to fill it in the quickest. There is a new cultivar that's hitting the market. Side growers are growing it now and probably selling it. We may talk more about that one later, but that was supposed to be an aggressively growing zoysia grass as well. However, it's not gonna have the shade tolerance, I don't believe, that El Toro is gonna have. So El Toro is a medium bladed zoysia grass. It's gonna blend really well with your Zenith, Meyer, Compadre, Empire, a lot of your medium bladed zoysia grasses, and it's gonna perform a lot better than almost all of them. So the last thing that we're gonna talk about today is weeds. As you can see, we did not have many weeds at all. We've got a little bit of Bermuda out there. We do have a lot of nutsedge. We had a couple pieces of crabgrass. The last application of the Bermuda grass killer that we put out took care of all of our goosegrass and probably 90% of the crabgrass that was currently growing. Stick around after I post this video. I am also shooting another video today on the new herbicide that's going to be much more effective at taking Bermuda out of your zoysia lawn. It's going to be a lot easier, a whole lot more effective. So stick around and check that one out, because that's going to be a really good one. That's going to be for zoysia grass and St. Augustine. Will have the same effect. So stick around. We'll bring you another update in the next 2 or 3 weeks on this lawn. In the meantime, check out our next video on zoysia, Bermuda grass removal from zoysia grass.